Alright, what's going on everyone? My name is Chase, and today is going to be my first build video of Destiny 2, which is crazy because I just realized that this is going to be my first build video. I've only uploaded, I think, one other video, which is my most recent with Fatebringer, that I hope you guys have taken a look at. If not, you can go check it out. It's why I think Fatebringer is one of the best, if not the best, primary in the game. But anyways, today, first build video, as you can tell. This is going to be a Bakris stasis build, and it's going to focus primarily on doing DPS. It's not going to be the best for mobbing or like being able to have a good in-between game outside of fights and stuff like that. You're just going to kind of have to shape it and mold it to how you want. But I'll show you the basics of it and the few mods that you need to make it work, and then you can fill in the blanks with whatever else you want to use that'll fit your playstyle. I'm going to always leave the dim link to them in the description, so you can go check them out and tweak them however you want. So, gist of it, here we go. We're going to start with Bakris. So, if you didn't know, Bakris has its own special buff called Light Shift. And so when you dodge, it'll replace your stasis dodge with like this weird blink-esque dodge. And for 10 seconds, you'll have this perk called Light Shift, which will increase all of your arc weapons damage by 10%. And it will increase the damage you deal to slowed or frozen targets by 10%. So that's 20%, and they stack with everything in the game. Every debuff and buff in the game they stack with. It's one of the very few things in the game that does it. So, of course, you have to be a hunter for this build to work. Which is probably not too surprising, because I feel like a lot of people are hunters nowadays anyways. At least recently. Maybe Titan. Titan kind of overtook it with this season. Beside the point. So, Bakris, that's 20% that you can get straight out of that off that dodge, assuming you're using arc weapons. As you can see, we're on stasis, and as we get farther in the build, I'll explain that a little bit more. High energy fire, of course, a staple in DPS builds. 20% more damage when you're charged with light, and it doesn't go away until you kill a target. So you'll have that full 20% for all of your damage for the entire boss fight. You just have to set that up right. For me, I'm using taking charge, but you can kind of use anything. Swift charge, whatever you want to use, whatever your guns are. To make my wells, I'm using melee well maker, and I have an elemental armament. I don't have any bountiful wells, but if you had like a cloak that had that, you could change it if you wanted to. If you wanted to just get 2 out of your melee, whatever works. I just have armament and the other one just for when I'm mobbing around. Font of Might. Font of Might's a flat 25% to all of your stasis weapons when you have when you pick up a well that matches your sub. Well, it's a well that matches your subclass, but we're using stasis, so 25% to all your stasis weapons for 10 seconds. And then Radiant Orbs is a new mod from the artifact this season that makes it so when you pick up an orb, you get 25% damage to all your weapons, and it also stacks with everything in the game, just like Font of Might does. So just between those two alone, that's 50% more damage. And then another 20 for high energy fire, so that's 70. If we're going to go technically here, you have 10% more arc damage, and you have 10% more damage to enemies that are slowed. So that's 90% damage out of this. If you're using all arc, this would be great, because you'd be able to do it, but you couldn't use Bakris then, you know? So you're kind of asked out. For right now, the arc 10% is going to be irrelevant, at least for right now. I will go into it later with it being still really good for this build. So the setup, all you have to do is make sure right before a boss fight, you grab a well and an orb at the same time, and then immediately dodge, and then you can just start using whatever, you know, if you want to use triple tap, Reed's Regret, that's perfect. If you have a good impulse amplifier, explosive light, which is what I'm gonna craft next, Palmera, or the new bump in the night rocket, whatever version of that stasis rock you have, whatever stasis weapon heavy that you're gonna use to do damage, you're gonna have the maximum damage. You're gonna have 80% higher damage than, you know, just all your buffs, no weapons of light, no nothing like that, just by yourself. And then if you wanted to get cheeky, which is what I'm going to do, if you just want burst on a single target, so if you want champions or something, you want to try to stack this with champions and being able to do damage and all that kind of stuff, you can div, which will stun champions, obviously, but div will also make it so that's your debuff. You can debuff your own rocket with all your buffs active. So you get 80% more damage with all of this stuff on top of the 30% debuff from div. And then, like with this one being lasting impression, I lasting impression, like shoot the boss first, then I swap to div, and then div the boss until it explodes, and then you'll get the full buff. I'll have the gameplay in the background after this, and I'll show you the Palmera and how that works. But if you were going to do real damage, I wouldn't div at all. Or if you have like a shorter window, I would div my first rocket and then just keep reloading and shooting a normal rocket after that. Because if someone else is with you and they have like galley, then it's going to be even more damage on top of that, obviously, if you have a rocket. But I would want an impulse amplifier and explosive light. So I'm going to craft that so I can have both of those. And that's going to make it so you're still going to have high damage and you're not going to have to wait for the lasting impression explosion, depending on how much time your boss window is. You want to make sure you get as much damage as possible, and explosive light's going to be the second highest, and then impulse amplifier just for the reload speed is nice. And so yeah, that's kind of the gist of the build. The second thing I would say is what I would do is I would swap to, I'm not going to swap the other things on it, but if you're going to use Storm Chaser, the new 3-burst linear, which is still going to be really good, because even though you're not going to get the Font of Might stack, which means you don't have to worry about wells at all. Wells aren't going to matter. You just have to make sure you grab an orb and dodge right before you start doing damage, and that's all you have to do. Because you're not going to have enough time to div in Storm Chaser. It's not going to be worth it at all. So don't worry about div. But for just Storm Chaser, even though you lose this 25, you gain the other from Bakris back. So you have 25 from here, right? From Radiance. Then you still have 20 from here. That's 45. Then you have the two 10% from Bakris. So that's still 65% more damage. I know it's not 80, but that's still 65% more. And you'll still be able to, just go in there and do the normal damage you do with Storm Chaser. If you're with your team, firing line's going to kick in, all that kind of stuff. But you're still going to be doing more damage by yourself, stacking all this stuff outside of the debuffs. If you guys don't have constant buffs and debuffs. And the only setup you need for it, that's what's amazing, the only setup you need to make that work is just grab an orb and dodge. That's it. Just grab an orb, dodge. You'll have Radiant stacked. You'll have, well, assuming you use taking charge, then you're going to have, your high energy fire. And boom, and there's your damage right there. And just make sure you throw your Dusk Field. That's another thing. Make sure, in the subclass, the only things that are going to matter are going to be your Dusk Field grenade and this right here, Durance. It's going to make your grenade last longer, so the slow is going to last longer, and it's going to last through your entire damage phase, or the entire time you have to do damage. And that's all you got to do. Beautiful. I'm going to show the gameplay in the background. Like I said, you can tweak this or use the different guns that you want. The high rollers near that triple tab Breezy Grit are going to be dope. Or a good Storm Chaser is still going to work whether you have the wells or not. You're still going to get good damage. And it's just fun. It's just fun to use. You could put an IS Luna in here, it'd probably be a better. Like I said, it's not the most optimized. I just kind of threw it. I don't have like full energy on everything. You can see I'm mostly solar on all my shit anyways. I don't have the best armor rolls for all the different stats that would be super helpful. But you can kind of get the gist of what I'm going for. It's still really well rounded. Your arc weapons are still going to be great. Your stasis weapons are going to be immaculate. And you're going to be just killing shit. Like, imagine your whole team running this. Even you had one div bubble, and you just had everyone doing this. Like, even div is still going to do more damage than normal because of all the buffs. It still gets the same arc buff as everything else. So if you were just diving only, it would still be good. It would still help you do damage that you wouldn't have otherwise had. So it's just crazy. It's just crazy looking at it on paper, because all of the buffs you're using, every buff you're using stacks with everything in the game. That's the kicker. That's the kicker to me, because you can still go and get a Weapons of Light. You can still go stand in a minus div obviously, but you can still go stand in a well and have your damage. All this stuff is still gonna work. It just gets more damage. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. So leave a like and favorite if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you want to see some more builds. I'm going to be putting out more builds for sure. I really like build crafting, and this is one of them that I just kind of popped in my head. Like, I should look into Bakris, with all the stuff coming in and the stuff you're able to do with it. And yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next one.